Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another special On the Sofa. Pleased to say that we've got three of the Trust guys on with us, Alex, Stuart, James and Stuart. So let's bring Vic on. Hiya, Vic. How are you?
I'm very well, Chris. How are you? Yes,
yeah,
good.
I'm good, thank you. Very good. Everybody's got an eye on the football as well, haven't they? Is it still 3-3?
I haven't had a chance to go over and put my telly on, to be honest, Chris. I kind of my arms aren't long enough.
Right. Okay. So I don't think we got much to talk about tonight, have we? Nothing has happened in the last few days.
Nothing. No.
Just wing it. We'll just talk about the weather or something.
Something like that. Yeah, it's not raining at the moment, so there we go.
Exactly. Okay, so let's bring on Alex. Hi, Alex.
Evening, all.
Hiya. Hi, James.
Evening, all.
And hiya, Stuart.
Good evening.
All right. So, any questions for the guys? Put them in the comments, and Vic will ask as many as we can. Okay, so I will leave you to it, and I will speak to you later.
Oh, Chris is gone rather abruptly, but thank you very much indeed for that, Chris. Welcome to the three wise men and one old fool panel. The wise men, of course, Alex, Stuart and James. I'll leave you to remember who is the old fool. Before we start, let's have a bit of fun, shall we? Because there ain't much fun about. But this is from Gavin. You might have seen this. Looking forward to this and in the hope of some good news. Can I suggest me has a Kylie Minogue poster up in the background between his Swindon shirts, and maybe the guys can be sporting some Aussie mullet wigs. James particularly would pull that one off nicely. Sadly, I don't have a Kylie Minogue poster, so I apologise for that. Anybody with any wigs? No.
I'm not far off having a mullet anyway, Vic. To be honest. So,
oh yeah, Stuart could get away with it. I've still got my ginger Pele wig I could wear, I suppose, from when we had our ginger Pele, but I could wear that one.
Yeah, if you'd done that 3 or 4, 5 weeks ago, we could have all had it would have been all good, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
From James Anderson, Vic, you must have some inside info. What's going on? Has Clem bought us? Josh says just pure silence today. James says been to the club, nothing, all closed up, cars outside. I think that's it for the moment on Twitter. James says, have you got anything for us? Well, shall we discuss and see if we've got anything for us? I've got a couple of emails which I'll get to as well in a little while. Alex, I know you've been away for a week, so just for the moment, if you don't mind, we'll get back to last Friday, and we'll maybe leave you out of this if that's okay with you, and we'll talk to James and Stuart about this. James and Stuart, tell us exactly what went on last Friday. Where are we at? Alex has got a bit of a wry smile on his face. Don't know why, but
there's 365 days in a year. I seem to have picked the busiest 10 to take off. But hey.
Fair enough.
He picks to on holiday.
Yeah, do better next time, Alex. Do better next time. What can we do? What can you tell us then, James and Stuart?
Oh, where do we start? Well, I think the whole club kind of combusted, really, didn't it, on one day, effectively. So, yeah, I mean, ultimately, the chief executive resigned, Steve Anderson. He resigned from the holding companies as well, which is always a sign that there's a change of ownership or something in the offing. And then, obviously, we then got wind of a potential resignation from our manager and obviously assistant manager. There was lots of rumours going around, and then obviously the statement came through then that both of them had left, and effectively they felt their roles were untenable because reading between the lines, they'd been promised or been given the indication that ultimately the things were all going to be kind of all fun and dandy, and okay, they'd released something earlier in the week saying that they had players lined up, but they couldn't sign them until into July. But it appeared that maybe the realization that actually that they were going to struggle to sign anyone and be able to put a team together because of the legal elements off the pitch were really going to kind of stop them from doing their job. So for whatever reason, they decided to kind of then leave the club. So, and obviously since then we've obviously heard that director of football, although it hasn't been confirmed, I believe yet, but director of football is obviously looking to leave as well. And yeah, I mean, there can't be hardly anyone at the club. I think, and obviously, when you look at the timescales, we've got pre-season and starting in a couple of weeks. Although I see the first friendly now has been moved to the end of the July to allow, no doubt, to allow them some time. So I guess where we, what we understand at the moment is the process, if you like, if you want to call it a process, is occurring in terms of the purchase and the transfer of the shares from Lee Power to Clem Morfini, the Axis Group. That's happening. These things take time, as most legal processes do. And obviously we're hoping that happens as soon as possible. But as we all know, legal processes do take a time, and you need to make sure that your due diligence is done properly. So there's hopefully no hidden surprises once it's completed. So we've been given an indication that it could take a couple of weeks, hopefully sooner. But that's essentially where we're at the moment, and that process is ongoing and will be until obviously the formal transfer of shares have taken place and Clem Morfini can then take over. He's got a chief executive in the wings, ready to come in and take over the kind of day-to-day running of the club, and that's pretty much as we know at the moment, really. Stuart, have I missed anything? I probably have. So much
I was going to say to Stuart, I've got loads of questions coming in already, Stuart, so we'll get through them as quickly as we can. But I think the thing is, Stuart, the time is of the essence here, because we're supposed to have been playing Supermarine next Tuesday, Melksham the following Friday. We've got, barely enough to put out, I don't know, a five-a-side team with substitutes. No pre-season training yet, as far as I understand it. No season tickets up for grabs yet, or indeed news of refunds on season tickets, all that kind of thing. And here we are. July is upon us this week. That means August is very close as well. And as we saw on Saturday, if you watch the Wales game, the mickey is being taken out of Swindon Town Football Club by a national football commentator. It's not great, is it?
No, it's not great, Vic. I mean, it's a bit dire, to be honest. James summarised the position perfectly, I think. We do need this transfer of shares to happen as quickly as possible. And Lee Power has said in the past that he cares deeply for the club. Well, now's the time to show it. If there's any statement of truth in that, then please do help this process move as quickly as it possibly can, because for all the reasons you've just highlighted, Vic, this needs to happen. We need to get Clem Morfini in. He needs to inject some funds into the club. We need to start buying some players. It really is a bit of a dire situation at the moment. I think we've got about 12 players on the books, something like that. Someone will correct me. It's just over a team, I think. It's no way to start a season. Things need to happen quickly now, and otherwise we are going to find ourselves in a very sticky situation when the season starts, unless all this is resolved within a matter of weeks.
Well, lots of questions coming in, so let's get to them, Alex. It's from Max. Is there any possibility that we go into insolvency? Now, this has been addressed by the court, hasn't it? The administration question. And as I understand it, that is not a possibility. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So from previous hearings and throughout most of this calendar year, an injunction has been in place preventing Lee Power putting the club into administration. So from the kind of football registration perspective and that side of things, that cannot happen. Obviously, there is still a question around how the club is being financed by Lee Power. Obviously, the judge asked to see kind of evidence and proof of how that was taking place in the financial state of the company. So from a business perspective, we'd still be keen to understand a little bit more as to whether, creditors and bills are being paid. But as I understand it, Clem Morfini and Axis Football Investments, have an understanding as to the financial health of the football club up to a certain degree. So I'm positive that, as long as this may or may not drag out and, whatever card Lee Power might try and play, it doesn't feel to me as though there's any direct or immediate risk of there being any significant issues of that nature. And just, stressing what Stuart said, it's really time for this transfer of ownership to happen as quickly as possible. We've seen previously that Clem Morfini has, funds onshore and funds offshore ready to immediately inject into the club. So we would be hopeful that once that transfer of ownership has taken place, he can come in, he can address any of those kind of major outstanding creditors, take a look at that EFL hardship fund, which is currently restricting some of the transfer operations and wages. But obviously from our perspective and from the supporters' perspective, we'll immediately need to be getting behind the club and looking at ways that we can support it and get sponsors back on board, so there is some revenue stream coming into the club. But in terms of insolvency and administration, I don't think there's any immediate worry right now.
Okay, I don't know if anybody wants to know the latest score in the Euro match. If you do, I suggest, gosh, it's going back to my old radio days, run around the room and scream for a second so you don't hear this. All right, so I'm just going to give it to you in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Spain lead 4-3. No, we won't do it again until there's another goal, obviously. Right. On the subject of the Football League, this is from Rob, and this worries me a bit, James, because one of the things a football club has to do is to guarantee that it can fulfil its fixtures, right? That's one thing that a football club has to do. So with time running out, this is from Rob, with everything that has happened, what will the repercussions be by the EFL? Well, they've got a plot to pay in this by making sure that the process is clean from their... Oh, and there's been another goal. So same process. Run around, shout a lot, blah, 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 blah. It's 5-3. Anyway, so will there be any repercussions from the EFL? Because in a minute, we can't field a team to play a friendly, for goodness sake, let alone a Football League game.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. I mean, I noticed today that the under-18s went back to kind of training and what have you. So in terms of, we're led to believe that the process should take a couple of weeks. So there is, in terms of actually the transfer of the ownership, there is work going on behind the scenes. We do know, in terms of a kind of replacement kind of director of football, and potentially looking at players in preparation for when Clem does take over. So, because that's the other thing as well. We had these 6 or 7 players lined up from the manager that he was looking to sign, and now we're starting from scratch ultimately. So there has been some parallel work occurring on that, as we understand it. So, assuming everything goes ahead in the next couple of weeks, and Clem gets the keys ultimately to the club, then they can execute on that process and of getting the manager stroke players that they've been working on in. But in terms of actually the legal element around the EFL, I mean, if we had to field a team, we could field a team, but it would probably be full of youngsters had we not brought anyone else in. But as I understand it, as I said, they are working on lining up potential players. So we're hoping that obviously, those, if things are done in a week or 2 weeks, then that can then be executed and those players can start coming in. But I think, as Stuart touched on earlier, it's no way as a preparation for the start of the season, because you're basically going to have players that hardly know each other effectively going into the league season, that have really not trained together. They might not be fit, et cetera. And I think we have to be prepared for a very, very difficult start to the season, even if Clem completes on the takeover, within a week or 2 weeks, because we are so far behind other teams, so far behind. We're probably 6 or 7 weeks, because if the manager, let's say for argument's sake that the manager would have stayed from last season, he would have been working on players as soon as the season finished. And now, so we are seriously behind the curve. So we really do need to kind of try and catch up. But we should expect some difficult games, I think, early on in the season.
Yeah, I think most people would expect that. Unpalatable though that might be. This from James. What the hell is going on? Good question, which we all knew. Right, Stuart, let me have a look. This is from John. What happens to the debentures if or when Lee Power sells his shares? Will he continue to charge STFC £14,000 a month? There are other charges as well, aren't there? Agency fees, as I understand it. Stuart, is that right?
Yeah, we understand he's paid himself a sum of, I think it's 225,000 in terms of agency fees for some of the players that we've taken on last season. In terms of the debenture, I'm not a legal expert, but my understanding is that that's a charge over the club, so that charge will remain in place until it's paid off. So yes, he will be receiving that money, is my understanding.
Okay, and perhaps you can ask this as well. When is the court this is from Sam, when is the court likely to release the information from what came from Friday's deadline? That is the handing over the documents that the court asked for, isn't it?
We don't. Who's the question? Sorry.
Well, any of you can take it. Yeah, it's fine.
There was a behind closed doors hearing, as far as I'm aware. Is that correct, James? And I believe that's being dealt with between the High Court, Lee Power's lawyers, and Clem Mulfooney's lawyers. So I wouldn't actually envisage specific documentation or information being released publicly. That's not to say, though, that we might not hear anything from leaked from one side or the other. But throughout this whole process, with everything that's going on legally behind the scenes, we're very aware that Clem Mulfooney, Axis, or his legal team won't be making any public comment at this stage until that process is over. And that's information that kind of we've been shared and we've been led to believe over the last few days.
Okay, well, hopefully as soon as the process is over, then we can speak to him. This from Pete. How long will a smooth ownership transfer take? Weeks, surely. Can I panic now? Well, I think we've been panicking for weeks, haven't we? But we've said 2 weeks, James, is that right? 2 weeks?
Yeah, we expect 2 weeks, but, if they get a good win behind them, they might get it done a bit quicker, but I think we have to allow for 2 weeks. We know what these processes are taking. I think in terms of the panicking, I think you have to look at it. I'm also a half glass, half full type of person. And the way I look at it is, okay, we're going to have a difficult start to the season. We're going to be behind other clubs. We might have to try and put a lot of it right in January in the transfer window. Then, if we miss getting the kind of players we want now because of the timescales and a lot of players already having signed for other clubs. But look at it this way: we are going to ultimately have a brand new owner who's got a strategic plan that is a good one, and ultimately wants to do all the right things in terms of engaging with the press, the fans, making our great club a more engaging place for fans, but also communicating effectively, all the openness and honesty that we've asked for from the current incumbent and not got. So I think that let's look at it positively. It's going to be hard for the next few weeks, but the positive is that we are going to have an owner for the medium to long term that will put a lot of these issues we've got right. It just might take a little while, and we might have a bit more pain on the playing pitch until some of the things actually get sorted. So I think that's the way I look at it anyway.
Yeah, I think most of us expect anything above the dotted line at the end of the season is a plus, quite frankly. This is from Rona. I've been a supporter since 1968, and this is the most worried I've been about the club. Thanks for that, Rona. Stuart, this is an unknown, isn't it? Has Paul Jewell officially left?
Well, I think James mentioned it earlier. I don't think he has officially left. Those are the rumours, and those rumours were pretty widespread over the weekend. I read that in a couple of different places, a couple of different websites. But to our knowledge, he is not officially left as yet. So I think we just have to wait and see on that one. Logic dictates that, it wouldn't be surprised if he did leave. But as far as we know, officially, that's not the case at this moment in time.
Okay.
We have to bear in mind as well, who's at the club sanctioning what goes out in the press now. There's no CEO. You've got very junior members of staff. Lee Power's got a lot of other things on his plate. So you would argue that, it may have happened already with Jewell, but they just haven't announced it. We don't know.
Yeah, okay. This from Tony. When does the transfer window close? Is it the end of August? If my memory serves. Yeah, I think
in September.
Yeah, I think it's the end of August. If somebody knows differently, please let's have a look. This from Matt. Following the publication of some of the financials, it's clear Lee Power is taking some money, recruitment fees to the tune of $225,000, which we've touched on. Any inkling if John McGreal would be back if the ownership is resolved? Well, I think, Alex, when we spoke to Clem Mulfooney, he was keen, wasn't he, to speak to John McGreal and see how that would go, as I understand it.
Yeah, I mean, throughout the whole process of Clem speaking publicly very recently, he was of the opinion of giving the management team his full support, and I think with him coming in, he wouldn't have wanted to kind of rock the boat, particularly if preparations for a new season were underway. And I know there were a significant number of rumours online last week about Clem's involvement and conversations he's had, and I mean, we wouldn't normally comment on speculation, but there was an interesting point that Clem was in Swindon last week. However, it's pretty well documented that Australian borders have been shut for a significant period of time. So I don't quite know how Clem would have got over here, but whatever contacts he's got, it'd be great to have a summer holiday. So the interesting part for me was the text that was in the two announcement statements last week of Steve Anderson resigning. However, the management team, had left by mutual consent. So I don't quite know, what's going on behind the scenes from that perspective. But I do know that Clem was yet to have a conversation with the management team ahead of the new season, and he wasn't planning on until the ownership situation was resolved. What Clem and Axis have planned behind the scenes in terms of when they do gain full control and their management team, we don't have any information or any insider knowledge on that at this moment in time. However, knowing how Clem operates with his businesses and how his team behind the scenes operate, I'd be very confident that they have a plan in place, so that as soon as they, take ownership from day one, they can hit the ground running, and they will be, investing a significant amount of time at present in preparation. So I personally wouldn't have any concerns for that kind of transition.
Okay, well, this is from me, and as Clem got a manager lined up, so you kind of covered that there, Alex. Right, Stuart, here we go. I think we've touched on this before. About the training ground. This from Anthony. Is the training ground part of the sale to Clem? And from Carol, what has happened to Standing's claim that he owns a percentage of the club? Well, Stuart, can you answer those?
Yeah, I can have a go, Vic. So in terms of the training ground, it's in Lee Power's name. So unless he's selling Clem that as part of the deal, which we're not privy to those conversations, let's assume for the moment he's not, because that wouldn't make an awful lot of sense. Then the training ground would not transfer into Clem Morfuni's ownership. That would remain with Lee Power. And
the Michael Standing percentage of shares.
So I mean that element of the court case is something yet to be decided. So even if we get to the position that we all hope for in the next week or so, where the shares are transferred over to Clem, there's still a ongoing dispute between Michael Standing and Lee Power in respect to the 50% ownership from way back in 2013. I think it was when Lee Power initially took charge. So that is a court case that still needs to be heard. We think that will happen in September, and then beyond that, the outcome of that hearing may lead to further issues for us in the form of the FA charge that's outstanding, whereby there may have been a breach of FA rules which prevents agents or players owning a stake in a football club. So all of that is yet to be determined, Vic. So this next couple of weeks is just the first hurdle, if you like. There's still a couple of outstanding issues still to be resolved after that.
Yeah, I got more comments on that. If Standing is proven to own half of LP's shares, and if Clem buys the club 100%, will Standing then take Clem to court? Well, we'll get into that in a minute, perhaps. From Dan, does Clem Morfini have the right to appoint a new manager whilst the transfer of ownership process is in effect? And what about the FA charge? Could that derail all of Clem's plans? Gosh, Alex, there's so. I mean, this is we're football fans, right? And this is all going through our head. I mean, I saw one message. I think it was Rachel on Twitter who said she's now got to the point of throwing the baby's toys out of the pram in frustration. And we're all the same. I haven't got a baby at the minute, but I don't expect to have one very soon. But That's the point we're at, isn't it? Anything we've got, we sort of go, what's going on? Get on with it. Do something,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many twists and turns in this saga. I did see a comment on Twitter the other day. Amazon Prime and Netflix must be shooting themselves in the foot that they've gone for, Sunderland and Man City, because it would be a great story. In terms of the Michael standing point, we are aware and have been aware and have previously published the fact that Michael Standing will not get in the way, will not stand in the way of a full ownership takeover by Clem or Fooney. Right. Obviously, the FA are still interested and keen to understand what the situation around the ownership is. And on one of the previous hearings, their legal representation were present on the call to kind of make notes, and had previously requested to the High Court that all of the transcripts, all of the evidence, all of the documentation as a result of this present battle was shared with them. So as Stuart said, hopefully at the point that comes in September, that trial may be heard. So there'll still be some elements and some news to come out as a result of that. With regards to Clem having authority to appoint a new manager, I'm fairly certain saying absolutely not. Obviously, he is a majority shareholder in the holding company of Swindon Town at present. So Lee Power is the majority shareholder. That situation is still in play. As far as I'm aware, I don't really believe Clem was involved in the discussions and negotiations around the previous management. So, from his perspective, as we said earlier on, he could be planning behind the scenes and have things ready to go. But in terms of a formal appointment of his desire, he needs to wait for the transfer of ownership.
Yeah, I think he said that to us when we spoke to him, that he hadn't had any input into John McGrill being appointed. And this is from Jason. This kind of goes along what you've just said. The 50% ownership will be dropped, as an agreement would have been made between Standing and Clem, which is why they have the same QC. And that's, I think, what you just said, isn't it, basically, Alex?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, James. Right, from Stephen. If Clem takes over, what's the directive from the trust on season ticket refunds? Because that's a hot topic, and this is dragging on. That's last season, the horrendous last season. People bought season tickets. All right, we got the iFollow thing, but people were wanting refunds. Some people put a lot of money in. 4 or 5 season tickets for family. What would you be directing once that happens?
So I think that was a question that was asked on one of the of Clem on one of his tours of duty that he did on the various different media outlets. I can't remember which one it was, but I remember him being asked that question. And I think his response was that when he does take ownership, he will be looking at that as one of the priorities ultimately in order to make a decision and ultimately come back to the fans, because I think it's an absolute disgrace that the club have still not address that. It's almost like they did the survey, which was some months ago now, back in February I think it possibly was, and I think they got lots of feedback on what the fans really wanted and the options. They've done nothing with it at all, which if they weren't planning on doing anything, why do they even bother doing the survey? It's just pointless. Just even more of a bigger PR issue, to be honest. They should have just left it, if they weren't going to do anything with it. But I think our view would be that the fans quite rightly deserve options on season ticket refunds, and there's a number of different things that can be looked at in terms of money being rolled over to next season, a complete refund, whatever it might be. And I think that'd be what our recommendation to Clem would be. Essentially offering them a very simple route, a couple of options, and fans then can choose ultimately which option they want to go with. Do they want to leave that money with the club under the new ownership? Ultimately, do they want a full refund, or actually do they want to roll that into their season ticket whenever those come out this season? And that would be our view really, that we'd put forward to Clem. And I think, like I said, he's already said that he would be looking at that as something when he does get control. So
yeah, okay. Stuart, this is from Jeremy. It's looking like we are a minimum of 13 million in debt. How deep are Clem's pockets? This is a lot of money just to bring the balance sheet to a positive. I mean, that is one of the things of taking over, isn't it? Debt, historic debt, and that has to be cleared before a new owner comes in and starts again. So, what's the position on that, as far as you know?
So, I mean, Clem is going into this with his eyes wide open to an extent, albeit, there may be other hidden debts that weren't evident from the accounts. So, I mean, as Alex has already said, he's got some funds in an onshore account ready to be injected into the club. He has made a commitment to pay off the creditors, so he's that's in place. He will do that over time. But it's I think he said in his interviews before, he wants Swindon to be sustainable. He wants it to be a successful business, but he realises that is a long-term aspiration and something that's not going to happen overnight. So, he does sound very, very committed to buying the football club. He knows that he's going to inherit a lot of debt. But I think the key thing under Clem Morfuni's ownership that we will hold him to account on is the transparency. So, he said he's going to publish full and comprehensive accounts each year. So we'll all have an insight as to what the debts are and how much is coming through the door, which will be a pleasant change from what we've been used to. He's going to have people on an advisory board, from the supporters groups, also Don Rogers as well. So everyone's going to have an insight as to what's going on in the club, which is going to be huge compared to what we've had previously. So, if there are any skeletons, they will come out of the closet, and we'll be aware of the situation.
So that goes. This is from Keith. Can someone clarify the 13 million debt figure mentioned previously? Not sure if it's that high. And then Jason says it's the figure on the account filed with Companies House. So there you go. That's from Jason. Sorry, there are lots of them coming in, so I'm going through them as they do. This is from Mark. It might be a great Netflix story, but it's equally a complete embarrassment to our club. And I have to say, that's how I felt on Saturday night when Steve Wilson made that comment about Swindon. I think we said before, harsh but fair. And that's kind of, that's where we're at, isn't it? For a football commentator who's commentating on Denmark against Wales could make a comment like that. What else is being thought about our club, which is pretty bad really right now? From Joe, Alex, how are we going to stop Lee Power from profiting out of Swindon in the future? Well, I think you said earlier, didn't you, that if it's a debenture and that money is owed from that debenture, then it will be paid until that's paid up. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe that was what Stuart touched on earlier on with regards to the interest that was being charged against the club. Obviously, it wouldn't surprise me if there's some more elements to come out as a result of what this deal entails and some of the other intricacies around Lee Power's involvement with Swindon Town Football Club and the holding companies and around the director's loan account that sits there. However, I know that Clem Morfuni is a fair man and has a fantastic legal team in place that know business litigation inside out. So if there's anything that's going on behind the scenes which is illegal or does not follow the correct kind of rules, it would not surprise me if those guys get involved and help kind of iron that matter out. I'm sure I speak on behalf of many Swindon Town fans when I say, it'd just be great once this saga is over and Lee Power has no further involvement with Swindon Town Football Club and anything going on at SN1.
This is from George, who sent me an email last night. I wonder if you could ask the Trust STFC chaps tomorrow, this was last night, if they will press as an organisation that when Lee Power's reign is over and Access take over, that all of his creative accountancy, that's George's words, will be made clear to the fans. I say Access take over, but with 23 hours to go until the broadcast, who knows what may happen? And to paraphrase the old Stingray, anything might happen in the next 23 hours. So, James, what do you want to say about that? What's the Trust stance on that one?
Yeah, I think, well, there's a couple of things really I'd say. I think a few of the questions there's been a few questions about the accounts and an explanation. So just to say, literally this evening, haven't had a chance to do it yet because we're obviously doing this, but once we get off this call, we will be publishing an article on our website, which is a breakdown, an explanation of the accounts that were actually posted with the Companies House. So we'll explain some of those because there are a few interesting things on there, shall we say. There's some adjustments on there as well, which we were particularly interested in from a few years ago, where elements which look like transfer money coming in from transfer fees and sell-on fees were classified incorrectly in the original accounts, and they've now been adjusted, shall we say, in this current set of accounts has been lodged. So again, we'll be explaining some elements around that, but also explaining, in layman's terms, ultimately what the accounts mean that were published. So we'll share that on social media later on tonight or first thing in the morning, so people can have a read. But in terms of, what we do going forward, I think it feels a little bit that, I think the FA and the EFL are obviously got wind of all this anyway. They're not the kind of organisations that once they start investigating, they're literally going to, they're not going to leave many stones unturned. So I would imagine in their investigations around the ownership side of things, in terms of the charges for Michael Standing and Lee Power, alleged issues, we don't know what the outcome of that's going to be, but ultimately, I think if there have been other events that have occurred or things that have been incorrect, to Alex's point, whether they be illegal or just simply not right, they will come out of the woodwork through that investigation from the FA/EFL. But certainly, I think knowing what we know as a trust about Clem and his legal team, if they find things as well, they won't. They're not the kind of individuals that will just turn a blind eye. They'll want to ultimately, address those in some way. So I think, whatever has happened and whatever potentially skeletons there might be in the closet, certainly those are things that will come to light, and no doubt actions taken on them.
Okay, just on the Spain-Croatia game again. If you don't want to know what happened, I don't know, walk outside or something. But all I'll say is the score remained as I gave you it earlier. That's probably the best way of doing it. And then there we are. This from Steve. Hi, Vic. Just drove past the county ground like a ghost town. All shutters down. Should be buzzing with kick-off a few weeks away. I'm not a religious man, but I've had a few words with him upstairs. Look forward to tonight's panel meeting. Cheers, Steve. Steve, thank you very much indeed. I think many of us might have, how can we put this, had words with powers that, if I might use that expression, are higher than normal. Sorry. Yeah, there we go. Right, let's have a look. This from Anthony. As long as Lee Power's gone, my money will go to Clem to fund the team. I hope the option of a slightly cheaper season ticket is on offer, though. For Mark, will the EFL be held to account on allowing Lee Power to pass the fit and proper test? The fit and proper test, eh? And from Rob, the EFL should have to answer some questions. The thing is with this, Stuart, this fit and proper person test, we do have a laugh about it. As I said to you earlier, have you got 2 stamps and an envelope? Yeah, well, you can buy the club. I mean, it does seem to me like that. That's how it is, isn't it?
Well, it does appear that way. I mean, is it worth the paper it's written on? If let's fast forward to a few months' time, the FA investigation looking into how Power and Standing bought the club, if that is the case, and that is unproven. We don't know the outcome of that case. But if it came to that position and they're considering any penalising the club in any way, then you'd ask them to look at themselves in the first instance in that scenario, because it's their fit and proper test that's failed. So I think it needs looking at, because it's not just our club. There's too many clubs that have found themselves in this position. So the fan base review has looked at this as well, and they're talking about separate a regulator in football. And I think if that did come to fruition, then I think one of the key challenges will be to install a more adequate fit and proper test, because the one at the moment doesn't seem to be doing the job.
You might remember, if you're old enough to remember this, David Mellor's football task force. I'm not quite sure what happened to that. but it didn't do anything really. This from Lee. Took a walk around the stadium yesterday and it's in such a mess. It's clear to see what Mr. Power's done to this club. Once Clem takes over, let's all go in and tidy the stadium. I tell you what, Alex, I often point to Exeter City, and I, if you're a Swindon fan and you get fed up with me doing this, fans go in and paint the stadium. They put handrails in to help people get from the back of the stand to the front of the stand. They do all sorts of things like that. I think Swindon fans would be happy to be involved in that, don't you, Alex?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just another indication of a football club in a division that really wants to connect with its community. From recent knowledge, the only time I can ever think of the club asking for support from fans is when there's been snow on the pitch, for example, and everyone's got to go down and take a shovel. But
Pizzagate,
it's such a large stadium, and there's a huge amount of maintenance that needs to be done across that. I don't think fans would have an issue by going in and have tidy up the area. And if that is something which there's a proportion of fans that are passionate about, and they want us to suggest the idea alongside the supporters club to the new ownership once they get in, that's definitely something we could do. And I wouldn't have thought the club would have any issue with, or Clem Morfini would have any issue with us making recommendations that come via fans for ways that can engage the club more closely to the community. So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, we could have a fans weekend, couldn't we? We'd all pitch in, wouldn't we? I can't do anything. I can lift a box or something, but I can't paint anything. But it would be great, wouldn't it? Get the fans down there for a weekend, tidy up the stadium, and they'd feel part of it, James, wouldn't they? That's what we haven't felt, isn't it, for a while now? Part of that football club.
It's I think it's been so disconnected as a football club in terms of the ownership to the fans and also to the local media. I think if you ask a lot of the local media, that they would have said the same kind of thing. It's just, it doesn't feel like a community club anymore. It's not been a key part of our community for a long time. Yes, people turn up. Yes, they support it. Yes, they care. But really, in terms of a kind of joint vision and joint, let's roll our sleeves up and really do everything we can for the football club, whatever it might be, to help it. It just hasn't, it's been very much a black box, I would say, is probably the best way of describing it. Lots of things happen within the club, but it's very much like, black box around it. There hasn't been that openness, and us as a trust, we've offered many times to help the club in many ways, whether it be financially, whether it be trying to, with the initiatives to try and do things, and largely it goes on deaf ears. And, so we've tried to kind of ignite and restart some of that kind of engagement to try and get some good things happening on match days, or, whether it be halftime entertainment, whether it be, the PA system rather, or whatever. We've come up with lots of improvement ideas, but largely it goes on deaf ears and we get told that they're working on it, but nothing ever happens. So I think we just need to get back to basics, really. It's Exeter's a really good example of a club that is a community club, and there's a lot to be said for that. And I think, fans would absolutely be chuffed to bits if, they could get in and help the club and feel like they're making a bit of a difference, whether it be just their time really, or, financially, whatever it would be. And that's really an area I think Clem's really passionate about. He wants club and the fans to be connected, and he wants that engagement to occur, and he wants people to feel proud of the football club that they support. At the moment, I don't think anyone would say that we're proud of the football club that we support. It's car crash, isn't it? It has been for a while now. So
yeah, well, as I said before, Steve Wilson can make jokes about us before a top international.
We are largely a laughing stock. I mean, you see some of the things that are put on social media about us, and some of these podcasts and things where they talk about us. It's embarrassing. And sometimes when you mentioned you're a Swindon fan, you're almost embarrassed to say it, because there's just so much in the press about us, and we are just a laughing stock, and it's awful. We just need to get back to being completely opposite to that, and a club that people can be proud of, and to be proud to say you're a Swindon Town fan.
Yeah, I always will be able to say that, I have to say, but I can understand the other side.
I will as well, but I think a lot of people, until while these things are going on, they, naturally they're a little bit hesitant about kind of saying that they are a fan. I think as a fan, we should stick with them through thick and thin. But I think ultimately some people will be hesitant about showing their support during some bad periods, which obviously we're going through at the moment.
Yeah, this is from Chris. I remember in the 80s, I went in with a few people and painted corridors and the dressing rooms. No reason we can't do that again. Actually, I do remember that, Chris. This is from Martin. It's our club. No issue at all about working on the ground. From Anthony, great idea. Tidy the club literally from top to bottom to top. And from Rob, you can make the tea, Vic. Well, actually, I do make a decent cup of tea, so that's fair enough. I'll do that. Right, this is from Craig Stewart. My understanding is the FA won't announce their decision until after the ownership dispute is resolved. Can you remind me of a date for the various cases? Now, the standing power case is September. Is that right, Stuart?
Yeah, I don't think we've got an official date yet, but at a previous hearing, the judge was talking about a September date, yes.
And this is from Matthew. Is Clem able to pay off the loan from the EFL straight away when he takes over to allow us to sign players, or is there a timescale we have to wait for, Stuart? Do you know anything on that?
We don't know for sure. We know it's a priority for Clem, though. Clearly, in order to build a squad that's going to be competitive, that is one of the restrictions that we've got in place at the moment. What I would say is for what we understand, you are still able to buy players who would be prepared to come for the wages we're allowed to offer, but it is still a restriction that he would be looking to lift as soon as he possibly can.
This is from Lee. LP's ripped the heart out of the club, that's why. Thank you very much for that, Lee. From Joe, firstly, thanks to the Trust for their dedication, resilience and perseverance. With Clem in Australia for the foreseeable future, I'm presuming that he has his own team all ready to go in the UK, Alex. I think we touched on that earlier, didn't we? He said that to us when we spoke to him, that he has got his team ready to go, hasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, Clem Morfuni owns the Axis Group. They're a huge global entity. He's got offices in multiple cities in Australia, in Asia, in the United States, across Europe, and also in the UK as well. Pre-COVID, he was always in the UK every couple of weeks anyway. He's not averse to traveling and being hands-on within his business, but he's also very keen to ensure that he employs the right kind of talent, puts the right kind of people in place, and allows them to get on with the job that they have the experience doing. So to the best of our knowledge and the number of conversations we've had around this, he has his structure and his management team ready to go and hit the ground running as soon as he does have that 100% ownership of the club. So I'm sure as and when that happens, there'll be plenty of opportunities for that team and those guys behind the scenes to be introduced to the supporters and to the local community as well.
Was the land in Highworth bought by Lee Powell or by the club, James? This comes up every time, and every time I kind of know what you say and then I forget what you say. It's one of those thorny old ones, isn't it? It's bought with the club's name, is that right?
Yeah, it was a lot of the legal elements and the plan permission and stuff was done in the club's name. So we must assume that, and again, this is an assumption that the club paid for that because it was in the club's name. But ultimately, Lee Power owns it. So I think, as we've already said, in the ownership piece, that's not part of the package that ultimately Clem's purchasing. I guess as a football club, we could decide. Once Clem has purchased the club, we could decide not to use that as a training facility and use something else. We do also need a permanent training base. I think Lee Power's obviously got plans for that in terms of property development and all of the other bits and pieces of stables and the housing and all the stuff that he's kind of asked for planning wise, and that's obviously going to be financially very lucrative for him, which is, I guess, why he's done it. The training complex was ultimately going to be funded from some of the profits of the property development. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's not something that's at the top of Clem's list, really, that piece, because it's not part of the agreement, really. So, okay. What happens post transfer of ownership? I don't know. We don't know, but
okay.
Yeah.
This from Tony. Fans would flock to the county ground to help out if Lee Power's gone. Like in 1963, clearing snow for the QPR match. I was one, says Tony. That was the famous baseball boots game, I think, 5-0, if I remember rightly, in that 62-63 season, the incredible winter of 62-63. None of you remember it, I know, but sadly some of us do. Would the panel agree that the supporters deserve an apology from the club on their complete lack of transparency? Stuart, well, we'd all like an apology. I don't see that coming, do you?
No, they deserve one, but yeah, I wouldn't hold your breath. I don't think you're going to get one. But what I would say to supporters is, this has been a little bit of a downbeat episode, it feels, but there are reasons to be very positive. And within hopefully a couple of weeks, we could have a new owner who is certainly engaged with the fans. He's made some commitments that if he follows through on them, and we fully expect him to do so, are going to massively improve the club that we support. So we had organised a boycott. Obviously, if Clem Morfuni takes charge, that boycott goes out the window, and we'd be launching almost an opposite campaign where we want to fill the county ground with as many fans as possible. Let's get capacity attendances, try and inject a bit of a feel-good feeling back into the stadium, and move on from there, really. So, you're probably not going to get that apology, but let's move on and look for the future, because it could be very positive for us.
This from Carl. We need the back of the Stratton Bank addressing. Gosh, it is a mess, isn't it? But the view going around the magic roundabout towards the stadium isn't great. Any plans to tidy up the facilities? Well, I think Clem has made that a priority, Alex, hasn't he? He said that he wants to tidy up the stadium to maximise basically the amount of money that comes in via the stadium, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's, in order to be ready for the pre-season, usually what would be happening around this time is that tidy up around the outside of the ground. But with so many members of staff on furlough, I'm not really sure how the club's being funded or who's actually working behind the scenes. It's very hard to tell. So I would imagine a priority would be, an immediate spruce up of the ground and make it look the way that it does. In terms of the kind of long-term stadium aspects, obviously before the ownership situation came to light, the trust, we were working with the football club to potentially acquire the county ground from the council for just over 2 million. And as soon as the ownership kind of battle saga commenced, Swindon Borough Council decided to kind of park those ideas until it was all sorted. And I mean, credit to our Vice Chair, Rob Angus, who's very good at the stakeholder management side of things. He's been continually updating local MPs and Swindon Borough Council about the situation that's ongoing. And, we have had discussions with Clem Morfuni ongoing about, whether we can reignite the flames on this deal and potentially, look at purchasing the ground on a joint venture going forward. Obviously, there's a significant number of other priorities first. When Clem Morfuni and Axis gain ownership of the football club, and once the waters are a little bit steadier, that's definitely a discussion we'd want to have with Clem and the football club, and potentially Swindon Borough Council again, to see if all of that hard work and effort that was put in with multiple partners pre-ownership saga, see if we can bring those to light again. And by all accounts, Clem and his team seem really open to having those discussions when the time is right. So fingers crossed there'll be a spruce up fairly shortly, but looking ahead longer term, I'm really hopeful that we can get cracking with those plans again and purchase the football ground for the Swindon community.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you very much indeed for that. This from Sean. Perhaps Clem could get someone in to do a documentary how he took on a mess and turned it around. Well, let's hope that happens in terms of turning it around, because boy, does it need turning around. It's the old oil tanker heading for the rocks at the minute, isn't it? From Anthony, what do the panel think of the Swindon player salaries released over the weekend? One player, £5,000 a week is obscene. Well, my view is a player will only get what somebody's prepared to give him, basically. And if I was offered £5,000 a week, James, I think I might say yes. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at those salaries, I think there's a couple of things. Obviously, that was from last season.
Yeah.
which actually, given what happened last season, it feels even worse, really, when you think about the amount of money we were paying some of these players. I mean, I think you have to remember that some of those players will have obviously had their salaries increased because we went up a league from winning League Two. Some of those players were only on short-term deals, and therefore, naturally they want to maximise their salary. But yeah, it does feel a real slap in the face when you see some of those salaries, and especially given the performances on the pitch. I think, but I think ultimately, if we know that some of those players, were earning more before they came to us, and they took a salary drop, even on those wages that were ultimately classified in that report. So, to get the best players, you have to be competitive, unfortunately. And I think, but yeah, when you do look at it and you look at some of the performances of, on the pitch, and you look at some of the money we're paying some of those players, it does leave you with a slightly unpleasant taste in your mouth. But I think some of the players, probably did earn their salary or near it, but most of them didn't. So,
yeah. Stuart, this is from Keith. Can you tell me what the current debt within 1 year is versus more than 1 year? I'm not a financial person, so I'm not totally sure I understand that. But do you understand that?
I'm not fully sure I follow the question, but what I can say is that
Stuart, I think that was I think Keith was having a discussion with someone on the comments in the it's Keith from Keith Coatsworth, who's also a board member of Trust.
Oh, right, okay. All right.
Trying to clarify some points from a viewer as well, just so he could get the correct information. So I don't think that's a question for us.
Okay, fair enough. All right, good, because I didn't understand it at all. So,
all we need to know is we're losing money every year.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Right, let's wrap this up. Gerard asks, when do the panel expect to see the club in Clem's hands? We've said 2 weeks. Let's go round the panel then, wrap this up with our thoughts for the next 12 months. My thoughts are this. If the takeover goes through, I'll be happy as long as we stay in League Two for the next season. Not this, obviously we're in League Two this year, but for goodness sake, stay in League Two. Let's not go to the National League. Let's do the best we can to turn this club around. And I'm not just talking about Clem Morfuni. I'm talking about fans as well, because we do need to be involved in this. We do need to feel it's our club. Yep. And that's what I want to see over the next 12 months. Alex, what do you want to see?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same. I'd echo all of that sentiment and those statements. But for me, it's more a case of when, not if. I think for Clem Morfuni getting ownership of the club, and I think as soon as that transition has taken place, it's really important that the supporters club, the trust, we do all we can to support the club and then get behind, whatever it is they're trying to pull together. I'd love to see some of those local sponsors coming back. That have dropped off. I'd love to see, that season ticket situation addressed, the EFL, grant paid off, and us actually having a squad that can go out and compete and play for the shirt. If all of those things align over the next couple of weeks, fingers crossed, we'll still be in League Two next season. That'll be a real good opportunity to have a significant, proper summer planning period where the season after we can actually kick on and compete for promotion to League One.
Yeah, my highlight is not having to travel on Boxing Day, Swindon being at Exeter City. Thank you very much indeed for that one. James, what's your hope for the next 12 months?
The ownership being transferred will happen, as Alex said. It's just a matter of time. Like I've already said, I think the period between now and Christmas is going to be tough because we're behind other clubs in terms of our kind of transfer activity and everything else. So I would suggest positive would be ownership occurs. We get to Christmas and we're above that dotted line, should I say? We can invest, maybe put some of the issues with the players that we probably haven't signed or what have you right in January in the transfer window, and ultimately, I think all the things that the guys have just said, really getting fans back to the county ground, even if we're not doing very well because we've not got maybe the quality of team we would hope. Let's get behind the team, whoever they are. Let's all get back to the county ground and show our support to Clem. Let's make him see that that the fans are there and are willing to support and a new regime, and with their feet, and some of the things that are on the strategic plan in terms of fan engagement, open and transparency, all those things, we start kicking those things off. And actually the fans can see that, that what Clem's put down as a plan actually starts materializing, and they can see evidence of that. And we finish the season effectively above the dotted line. I think that's a good season for us.
Yeah. Stuart?
Yeah, I'd echo all of those points. I think let's get some big crowds in there. That first game under Clem, let's try and get a capacity crowd if we can, or as big a crowd as possible. It might be a tricky season on the pitch, but it'd be nice to think that the fans will stick with it and support the club. And next season, if a player's looking at who to sign in League Two, and they look at the average attendance at Swindon and they see it's 7,500, 8,000 or something of that nature, then it becomes a big draw, and the season after we could really kick on and hopefully, as Alex says, get promoted up to League One.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed, gentlemen, as always. And thank you very much indeed for your hard work as well behind the scenes, because, boy, it's a lot of hard work. And we do appreciate that, not only from the Trust, but the Supporters Club as well. I just sit here on a Monday with a voice on a stick, but you boys do all the work. So thank you very much indeed for that. Chris, welcome back. Hello.
Hi. Well, thank you again for your time, guys. That was really good, including Vic. Very informative. I've learned a lot tonight, because I just looked at the accounts and thought, I just don't know. So there's a lot put in layman's terms. That's fantastic. We have nearly 300 viewers, so it just shows what the support is out there. They're missing the football just to watch this, which is great. So thank you very much again. And everybody, if there is anything to tell you, we will be back. So keep an eye on social media. If we have anything to discuss, we will be back. So thank you very much for watching, and we can go and watch the football. So thank you very much.